Hey everybody, and welcome to today's Revenge is Ice Cream. First up, Boss wants to be mean to me, I'll throw a party without him, by Confused Potato 25. I, 18 and female, work as a custodian for an elementary school. I recently just graduated high school this past May, yippee, and got hired for this job at the beginning of my senior year. At the start of my employment, things were going good. My boss, the head custodian of the school, was very nice to me, and it seemed like we were going to get along well. But it wasn't until January of this year when things took a turn. I'm not sure why, but my boss totally flipped on me and started to treat me like garbage. He constantly berated me, accused me of not doing any work during my shift, which was not true, gaslit me into believing all the other staff in the building hated me, which also wasn't true. Told me to get over it when I asked for time off to grieve over a pet who suddenly passed, and much, much more. He even went as far as trying to prove I was a horrible employee to the principal of the school, in an attempt to get me fired, but she thankfully dismissed his claims and sided with me, since he had no real evidence. It's a long story that probably deserves its own separate post, but with all that being said, the way he treated me, among other things not related to work, really started to take a toll on my mental health throughout the latter half of my senior year. My grades started to slip, and I got really depressed. But I refused to quit due to a familial pressure, needing the money for college and the flexible hours the job offered me. Fast forward to now, and I'm still working for this absolute piece of garbage over the summer, but before you all ask, yes, I am hoping to transfer to a different custodial position at a different school, with hopefully a better work environment. But as of right now, that hasn't happened yet. I don't know why, but since summer started, he's flipped back to being Mr. Nice Guy, must got back on his meds, and suddenly wants to erase everything that's happened between us and act like we're best friends, which I'm not having at all. He hasn't even apologized. It ticks me off so much, but I try to keep calm. Anyways, keep that in mind. It's now time for the revenge part. I really love to bake, and I've wanted to bake something for my coworkers for a while now. My coworkers are all really nice to me, and I felt they deserved a little treat for all they do. However, if I brought a treat into work, I would have to share it with my boss too, which irked me. But luckily for this week, he was going on a camping trip with his family, so this was my time to strike. I picked one of the days my boss was gone and told myself I was going to make a dessert and bring it into work then. But that's not all. I decided to take it a step further. The day before I was going to bring in a treat, I sent a text message in our work group chat, a group chat with my boss in it. I informed everyone in the chat that I was planning on bringing in a dessert the next day, and if any of them wanted to bring in something as well, they were free to. My coworkers delivered. Everybody brought something. I had coordinated a giant dessert party. I also picked the one day of the week that the teachers and other staff were allowed to be in the building. So I got to share my baking with just about everybody who works at the school except my boss. The best part is that since he's camping somewhere with no cell service, he didn't see the messages coordinating this until he got back. So when he leaves his camping trip, he's going to see that everybody had a party without him. He should be back at work from his camping trip in 2 days, so we'll see if he brings it up then, but I think this was a success. Next up today we have I snitched on my colleague and almost had him fired by extension carrot 3249. In my country, there's this thing where high school students can apply for a job under the summer break and work for 3 weeks, either in June, July, or August. So this isn't like your regular job, but you're still working and getting paid. In the beginning of July, I, 17 and female, started working for an organization that was all about getting children and youth to move around and be more active. So my job was to basically lead different kinds of activities and play with the kids. Besides me, there were a bunch of other teens working with me, but I'll only be focusing on this one specific guy, 16 and male. I'ma call him Bob. Long story short, my colleagues were extremely unserious and would laugh at any given situation, no matter how unserious it was. I didn't think much about it until the beginning of the 3rd last week, where I had to work in a group with some people including Bob. Now, what didn't sit right with me is that each time I said something, Bob would look over at his friends and they would just chuckle amongst themselves. I didn't think much about it, since they laugh at quite literally anything and everything. I just wanted to get the job done. However, the next day my supervisor pulled me aside to talk to me, and he told me how he had been observing the group's behavior for a while now, and he noticed that some people, Bob included, laughed whenever I said something, and he told them that when I left that he wouldn't hesitate to fire them if he found out they laughed at me for whatever reason. He told me that all of them denied the accusation and simply said they're having a hard time staying serious, which I believed at first until Bob decided to run his mouth. A couple of days afterward, we got inside earlier due to a storm, and we had less than 1 hour before clocking out. To kill some time, we decided to play Mafia. For those of you who don't know, Mafia is a social deduction game where players are secretly assigned roles as either Mafia members or villagers. During the night phase, the Mafia secretly choose a player to eliminate, while special roles like the Doctor can save someone and the Detective can investigate a player to learn if they're Mafia. During the day phase, everyone discusses and votes to eliminate someone they suspect is in the Mafia. The game continues with alternating night and day phases until either all Mafia members are eliminated, villagers win, or the Mafia outnumber the remaining villagers, Mafia wins. So something like Among Us in real life. However, after 2 of Bob's friends got eliminated by one of the Mafias, Bob came up with a conclusion that I am Mafia, and his reason was, and I'm quoting, "We're laughing at her." So I assume he probably thought I wanted to take my revenge on those guys for laughing at me by eliminating them in the game. How childish. But now I had proof that they were in fact not laughing at nothing but at me. And I specifically targeted Bob only, not because his words wounded me, but because he was the only one stupid enough to say this in front of everyone, even our second supervisor. I rushed to grab my phone and I immediately texted my other supervisor, the one who threatened to fire those who laugh, about the whole situation. I even made sure to sound extra vulnerable and hurt, and not even 5 minutes after he texted me back, my second supervisor got a phone call from him, and they discussed how they should handle this situation. Before we got to clock out, my second supervisor said how the whole organization had absolutely no tolerance for bullying. Quite right, too. Said how we didn't appreciate people laughing at each other. That's when he made Bob apologize. Of course, his apology was everything but sincere, since I could literally see him trying not to laugh, and the whole apology speech sounded like it was written by ChatGPT. However, it didn't stop there. There were around 3 days left before we'd finish with our job, so instead of firing him, which wouldn't be too much of a punishment in this scenario, they rather had him working like a slave for the last 3 days. He was even sent to different kinds of places and told to clean and tidy the areas. Meanwhile, I literally got pulled aside by my second supervisor and told that I needed to work less. One moment that truly brought me a sense of victory and satisfaction is when my supervisor allowed me to leave work around 40 minutes early, after he told me to sit down and work less. And as I walked past a football field where the kids had a huge water balloon fight, I saw Bob with a big trash bag in his hand, picking the remaining balloon bits and pieces all by himself. Just thinking about the whole scenario makes me laugh. I'm so glad that my supervisors actually went out of their way to punish him, and not just make him recite an AI-generated apology and move on with their life. I wasn't actually that offended by his constant laughter. I just wanted to let him know that if someone is quiet and more reserved, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll put up with his cheap behavior and not say anything about it. His laughter didn't bother me. I was actually only being petty, and wanted him to get in trouble because when they go low, I go lower. And third story today is Business Cards. Yours haven't come in yet. By Octolary. I had a coworker once who was the absolute worst. We worked a retail commission sales job, and he was constantly stealing my customers and sales by quite literally stepping in between me and my customer, or trying— it's a good way to get kicked in the balls, really— or trying to shove his way onto the cash register while I was ringing people out. He also smelled awful and was very bad at the job, which is why he had to resort to stealing my sales. I switched companies, and somehow this stinky a-hole managed to get a job at the exact same place. I couldn't get away. His behavior continued, but management shut it down as it wasn't just me he was working alongside of. He managed to tick off the entire team. The industry we worked in at the time was cellular, and this was before the advent of cloud storage, so if people wanted to transfer things, besides contacts off of a phone and onto a new one, they would need an SD card or a computer or iTunes. We had a machine that would do contacts and photos, but this was very temperamental and would frequently miss large chunks of data. So if someone was trading in their phone, they would need to leave and come back to complete the sale. I would say about half of the folks would need to leave and come back, and if you weren't there to grab them, you better hope Stinky wouldn't snake your sale. Management instituted a rule that these return sales were to go to whatever rep's card they had. So if you forgot to give them a card, it was free game. Cards were stapled to their quote they would bring back in. When I started, I immediately asked them to order the cards for me. So I had cards, but Stinky A-hole didn't, and he never asked anyone to order for him. Instead of asking for our own, he would just cross out our name and write his. Rude. However, they were glossy, and pen didn't stick well, so I can't read the name because it was 90% rubbed off. I guess I'll use the original rep on the card sales code. Everyone at the store was angry at him for being pushy, dishonest, and smelling awful. So I was not the only person who employed this plausibly deniable tactic. About a month later, I was popping into our back room to grab more of my cards, and Stinky called out, "Hey, can you grab me some of yours too?" I sighed and climbed up to the shelf I was on. And what did I see but Stinky's box of cards? Sure thing, I told him. I moved his box of cards so the front wasn't visible and stashed it in the back where no one would see it. After months of him losing the return sales, he got wise and finally asked the manager for cards. He was shocked when they said they came in months ago, and there they were, on the shelf. Imagine that. Okay, number 4 is Daughters of the Desert, Faces Uncovered, by SSHSQ92. We were at the hospital again, me and my father, a place so familiar it felt like a recurring dream I never asked for. Same sterile hall, same stretched-out time. I used to walk these corridors with him when I was younger, back when I was just entering puberty, becoming a woman. That was the turning point. He used to adore me. I was his favorite, spoiled daughter. Then one day I became a threat. He couldn't handle my body changing, couldn't handle the idea that his daughter might be seen the way he feared women being seen. So he tried to erase it, erase me, with shame, silence, and force. He made me cover, not through gentle guidance, but guilt and control. I remember fighting back. I remember the protests. I lost, and locked myself in a world of my own, promising I'd one day leave and never look back. Years later, here we are again. He's older now, frail, needing help. We waited for hours at the hospital. Eventually he snapped, lashed out at me in public, loudly, carelessly, but I didn't flinch. I just looked at him, calm and firm. My eyes said, "You're doing too much, Baba. Tune it down." That was all, and it was enough. He stormed off like a man running from his own helplessness, but I stayed still. I didn't break, I didn't explain, I didn't fight, I just was. Later he made me walk him to a nurse station, trying to use me, a doctor, to skip the queue. I went, and as we passed a woman fully covered, likely from the Bedouin desert tribes, she looked at me and said, "Cover up." For most of my life I'd been taught to stay silent, to be polite, to swallow insults from people like her. Not today. I turned my head to her and said clearly, loudly, without apology, "None of your business." That's when I knew I had changed. I wasn't reacting like the girl I once was. I was wearing an abaya, stitched by my aunt, full of color and tribal patterns. The kind women in my family wore before Sawa, before Wahhabism, before shame became law. I showed my face just like my grandmother and great-grandmothers did. My body wasn't hidden. My voice wasn't silenced. I didn't dress in rebellion. I dressed in remembrance and reclamation. I've realized men like my father sexualized everything, because they were raised in systems that gave no emotional language, only dominance, shame, and paranoia. My brother once told me, if Baba had a handsome son, he would have been sick with worry too. But you were a beautiful daughter. He panicked. He was trying to protect me in the worst way possible. My father once apologized for how he raised us. That mattered. But healing didn't come from his words, it came from this moment, me choosing not to carry it anymore. I walked out of that hospital today, not as his broken daughter, but as a woman who stood still in the face of shame and didn't flinch. And finally today we have Don't Scare Women in the Dark, always good advice, by The Fattest Cat. I was at a party and wanted to go buy some cigarettes from a petrol station. It was around midnight. It was a short walk, maybe 500 meters along a lightly winding bike path in a village in Germany, with the road on one side and bushes, trees, and fields on the other. There were barely any cars, one or two people on bikes passed me, but generally very quiet. So on my way back, I was a bit concerned when I heard rustling 30 or so meters ahead of me, thinking of a boar from the forest. I stopped and waited, but the rustling sound persisted. It was just behind a curve, and I couldn't see anything. Then I heard some whispers and stifled laughter, male voices. I'm not scared in the dark, but the thought of men clearly hiding in the bushes did make me nervous. I stood still, not knowing whether to run, creep back to the petrol station, or call for a friend from the party to get me or whatever, when one of them said, "Maybe she went a different way," in a hushed voice. Since it wasn't a whisper anymore, I kind of recognized the voice as one of my idiot friends at the party, which was then confirmed when I heard another familiar voice say, "There's just one way. She'll be here any minute now." The adrenaline already surging through me turned my fear into rage, and I was just about to start screaming at them when one of them said, "Let's go around the bend to see if she's already heading towards us." This birthed a different idea, and I did the Homer Simpson bushes thing. Well, not quite, since the bushes weren't very dense, but I tried my best. I heard them walk around the corner and positioned myself facing the bike path, grabbed a thin branch and waited. Then I saw their shadows, then them. Just as they were about to walk past me, I snapped the branch. Now would be the time to mention that I'm pretty pale with jet black, almost waist-length hair that I let loosely hang to the sides of my face. The two dunces turned their heads at the twig snapping and saw me, and screamed like toddlers. Oh, damn. I didn't know grown-ups even had this kind of vocal range. They even grabbed at each other from sheer terror. Oh, that's sweet. Sadly, the moment was quickly ruined by me, almost peeing my pants with howling laughter. But it was still very nice while it lasted. The aftermath was probably what everyone expects. They became angry and started shouting at me. I shouted back, asking what they were intending to do then, followed by them sheepishly stammering around a bit and admitting that they had it coming. And finally, I was going back to the party, and me boasting to the others as well as recreating the visual effects, over and over, while cackling. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a few ways you can do that. You could consider subscribing, then do it. And you can also support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. $1 a month gets you early access to the videos on Monday. You can support more if you wish. It's just pay what you feel, so more is appreciated, not necessary. And there is also a link in the description to my merchandise store on Teespring to get yourself some hoodies, mugs, and the like. And I think that's everything for now. So let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: drawing from personal experience of late, when was the last time you were ever surprised by a company in a good way? Like recently, I bought a treadmill, a walking pad, not like a full-on treadmill, and only had it a few months and it's starting to fail. Not because I'm fat, it is within my capacity. And so what surprised me was I thought, well, I'm going to have to make sure I reserve some money because I'm probably going to have to pay to send it back to them, because that happened to me before with Amazon it was. And to my surprise, I contacted them. They went through all the, did you try this, did you try that? I said, yes, I've done all the things in this stuff, don't worry. I even did the bits and the bobs. I've done all that. And eventually they said, okay, well, we'll refund you. I said, well, I'd like a replacement. So we don't have access to a replacement, so we'll refund you the money. I said, okay, right, that's fine. And we'll arrange for a pickup. To my shock, because I'd been told previously by Amazon that they didn't do pickups when there was an issue with something I purchased many years ago. So it's possible the policy's changed. So tomorrow, I'm going to go box it up later. I've got the label and everything printed out that goes inside the box. Someone will come from Amazon to pick up this treadmill. Then a few days later, I'll hopefully get the money back, and then I can order a new one because I really, really miss having it. I can feel the difference in my mood. Having the ability to work out every day is just one of a number of things I'm doing to help keep myself stable, regulated, balanced, and it is helping. And not having it there, at least not having the convenience of being able to do it at home. I do go out on my bike, of course. I could go for a walk, but I can't take a television with me when I walk outside. But yeah, I was genuinely surprised that it was such an easy process, and they just said, yeah, we'll pick it up. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, we'll take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. Let's see. This one is from Squishy Josh. You guys have got some amazing names, you really do. That you can be too poor to have health insurance, then get fined because you don't have health insurance. That goes for so many insurance-related things in society. Like, you have to have car insurance, and it's understandable why you have to have car insurance, but you might find yourself in a situation where you can't afford it, but you still need to drive to get certain places, especially in an emergency. It's a messed up world. I hope it'll get better. I'm not saying we need to move toward a utopia, but maybe the common expression is that I've heard, if you're a Star Trek fan, you'll be familiar with this, is a post-scarcity society, and that's the society in which everyone has healthcare, you have a roof over your head, you have electricity, you have food and clothing. All the basics are taken care of, therefore you don't really need money, but people still work because they want to better themselves and the human race. And I think that rich people will tell you, oh, well, if you just gave people money, they wouldn't work. Well, no, they would. They'd probably work a lot better as well, because people who aren't stressed are more productive. Will we ever get there? I don't think in my lifetime. I hope one day, if we don't blow ourselves up, but we'll see. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves.